Hey everybody, I'm Mr. Todd. This is Stories and Solutions, and I have Andrew Racho here, voiceover artist, producer, writer, director, everything guy. Check it out.
It's really cool that like you believed in me, and like I said, I appreciate you even being here, and it's
Yeah,
just your knowledge, and it's just really
yeah.
it's cool.
And it's you just always got to remember there's a place for punk rock and there's a place for, there's a place for down tempo lo-fi, the Ramones will be just as remembered as that anime girl on that YouTube channel
Yeah,
filling out her homework while listening to like lo-fi beats. There's a world for it. There's a
yeah,
Spotify playlist where you can be put in somebody's realm. The business of it is finding the people who want that and collaborate with that and the places where you can bring that to the most where you enjoy doing it and other people enjoy you doing it.
yeah.
That's just the work of it. And if podcasting's that space, man, that's a good space to be in.
So would you say that I could do, like, I can earn, I don't know, I don't know if that's the right wording, but like would I be earning voiceover type of, I want to say credit, but like experience by doing this?
I
Like I could,
mean, you are like I think that's the misnomer is what voiceover is, which is earning money from somebody to talk about a brand thing or being in a cartoon or doing a thing. You're talking, people are paying attention. And if you're earning money from this, you're voiceovering.
I got you.
You're
Yeah, I
doing,
don't, I get just Anchor and um like I have my t-shirts, so I do that myself. That's
yeah.
my own thing. When you were doing your books, what
Mhm.
was your process?
Oh, this is not a kid's book.
Yeah, because
uh,
I have a kid's book, but it's like it sounds morbid, but it's on death, but it's based off of pretty much everything we were talking about spiritually.
yeah. I mean, the kids got to learn lessons. I mean, however you present them and know how to present it to them. That's a thing. But I started my kids' books out. One of my buddies posted this thing. He's like, I want to write a kids' book. And I told him exactly how to do it because I'd written comic books before. I went through the process, cut my teeth doing a comic a week, set myself that doing that for 5 years. It got to
Wow.
the point where in the industry where it's like, no one opens doors for you very easily. Some people, there have been times if I was lucky and somebody took the chance on me, then my career would have been like skyrocketed completely through. Um, but for the most part, my experience has been that nobody opens the doors for you. But the second you open the doors for yourself, everyone starts wanting to like figure out your success,
Mhm.
or figure out how to do what you do, or utilize you, or see you for what you are. And part of it is finally being able to express your ideas in a way that people can get. Nobody wants to take their chance on the person who's hopeful about the music. They want to hear the person's album. So uh, I did that with comics and for years, and then at a certain point, my buddy posted, "How do I do this?" I told him exactly how to do it, where to find artists, how to write your book, how to present it to them, how to market it, how to make your money back, how to do this with as little initial investment as possible to actually see your final product, and then how to figure out how to market from there. And I was like, do 6 of them, do 7 of them, and then take it out as a book and do something with it. He deleted the post. Uh,
Mm.
and I think that part of that was out of like timidity of like, oh, here's something that's getting real, or like it's too much, it's overwhelming, which I get. The people I've seen succeed will take all that overwhelming information, parse it, and do something with it. But like he at that point was not in a shape where he was like, I really need to follow through with this because this is my passion and I need to do it. So I took that with my ego and said, well, screw you. I'm gonna go do this and prove that everything I did was right. So I wrote a kid's book, but I have a horrible sense of humor. So I wrote the premise being called "This is not a kid's book," where it was a kid's book, except every few pages that you turn would be just the most horrendous stuff possible, and you'd be able to glue the pages together and actually have a kid's book. But when you found the other pages, you'd realize this is not a kid's book. So I wrote like 5 of those. I gave him a copy and told him the story, and he laughed at it. But but then I just ended up writing more. I think I've written up to 15 at this point. I don't think I have them all of them done or published, and they're all in various states. But I did a lot, and we'll see if I want to do more. But I wrote a lot of books.
Yeah,
They're
wow.
all available on Amazon. This is not a kid's book if you're interested. PDFs, which I'm a big fan of digital versions at this point. Um, I love the idea of not having to print a book and send it to someone. I know there's a like people love holding the books, but I love when people can just pick up digital content, download it, and enjoy it.
Yeah, you could just take a walk, or you know, you can't walk and well, you can, but because people text and walk, but you can't walk and read a book in general. But
Yeah,
you can walk through the city and drive in your car. And I actually had a well, there's two things. I thought about doing a OnlyFans type of thing where I either write and and read, or just read um like not so much erotica, but in that realm of things that I would read to like women, I guess, that would be um utilizing my voice for what it sounds like, I guess.
yeah.
And because I kept doing it, and I was like, see, this would be a side hustle. Like,
Yep.
you know,
Oh, I've been in that realm. I've thought about doing it and was like, because there's like a couple YouTubers who got popular for essentially being sort of side boyfriends in a way, or like you listen to them and you just hear like, somebody talk very gently. There are people who've done it before, and that's certainly a way to do it, to do some stuff. You just gotta choose to do it if you so desire. I always say do it under a fake name.
yeah, yeah, for sure. I even have a name, and I thought about it, and I was like, nah, the negative stigma of OnlyFans. So then I thought,
Gross.
you know, yeah, really, huh? At the end of the day, we
Like
all
who?
die.
I mean, yeah. Who do you have to impress? Like who do you have to impress that like if they find out you have an OnlyFans where you read erotica to people, like
Yeah,
that's
fair.
gonna stop you. Like, are you hanging out with billionaires and millionaires who'd be like, "Oh, you read erotica to lonely women?" Oh, like no. Most of us don't have that, so there's no moral barometer
Yeah,
around doing that. If the moral barometer should be, is this healthy? Um, I think
right.
certain things of OnlyFans can be healthy, and certain things of it can't. The way that people use it, when it becomes a surrogate for meaningful connection, and you're utilizing the knowledge of that to capitalize off of other people, that's problematic. But if you're using it as a way to do adult film, adult entertainment, adult comedy or adult anything in a safe utilizing in a safe way that protects you and gives people the content that they want, then that's fine too. The parasocial stuff of today's sort of landscape is the hard stuff to navigate because it becomes difficult, especially if you're, let's say, streaming or doing OnlyFans or Patreon. You have your customers, you're like a store in a way, and your customers are coming in and you're seeing them, and certain customers will demand more of you personally than others. Stores, you at least have that there is a clear division. You're paying me money, I'm giving you
Giving
this.
you this, yeah.
But with when you do things like, let's say, like a live stream or an OnlyFans, people are paying for, it's not just people are paying for stuff. People in some ways are also paying for connection. And as an actor, you kind of have to understand that, like, well, like what you're doing in some ways is good and bad, because in some ways people are looking to you for emotional connections that they don't have in their real life. But your job as an actor is to live something fully for people to understand a story that ultimately can influence them. So, it what we do can either be entertaining or it can be therapeutic to know that people aren't so alone and in feeling certain things. There's a certain arrogance to that and a certain groundedness to it that, like, yeah, this is what some people have to go through in, whether it be in this romantic comedy, in this horror movie, in this thing, like understanding someone else's emotions and recognizing them, um, un, uh, humbles you to the humanity of experience, to what these characters are going through and how that may relate. But with, OnlyFans and Twitch and all this other stuff, it's like, ooh, like, Are you their friend? Are you not their friend? Are you friend
Yeah.
because you gave them money? Are you friends because you've known each other long enough? Where does that friendship line, like, where does that get crossed? Are you able to hang out with people? Are you able to not hang out with people? Are you able to be like close friends, but also you give them money? Like, where,
Yeah, it's
um,
weird.
what do you feel entitled to? Is it okay that you feel entitled? Is it, should you just like give, like, money and be not feel like what you're getting back? Is it like, you draw all these weird questions and none of those things are really defined. I think there's a danger in a lot of that side of it that's not necessarily the people using it for, like, for pleasure or anything like that. That's
Yeah.
the stuff that, like, if you can draw that clear line that whatever you're doing is entertainment, it's like fine. But I that the parasocial stuff kind of is a moral gray ground that I feel bad that a lot of the younger kids have to navigate, you know.
Yeah. See, I don't I'm kind of I feel the way you do. I'm more like, okay, maybe I don't know how to, but if I was to do audiobooks,
Hmm.
it's just that's great for me. My friend was the one that kept saying, "Man, you should," and it's a girl. She
Yeah.
was like, "I could listen to you all night long," and I'm like, "Yeah." My wife says I put her to sleep, so I'm trying to figure out, do I do ASMR and make people go to sleep?
Yeah.
$5 a month. I'll put you to sleep for 30 days. But
I mean, I think there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. If you're providing like that service, like, in a way, like, podcasts are a way that people can have some stuff to listen to. I know it because I, work from home a lot. Is that, if I've got a jam on a project that, let's say, I'm not doing acting or directing and I'm working on like a production in some other capacity, and I just need to, jam through some stuff. Listening to podcasts is nice. It helps. It keeps you company. It makes you feel less alone. It makes you feel like you've got a friend there, and you could just hear people outside of your bubble talk
mhm,
about stuff you're interested in. That's amazing. Like, that's a great thing. Same thing with ASMR. It's like you have trouble sleeping because you have anxiety, depression, whatever you're going through. And this is a tool that you can use to help you. It shouldn't be the tool. Obviously, anyone who goes through, who's dealing with stuff knows that it's usually a mixture of like 10 things that you have to work on.
right.
And it's one thing can't just be the solution, you know?
Yeah. Then it's an addiction.
Yeah, then you're just essentially, yeah, feeding a beast, or using a thing as a drug, and that's not healthy. You know, but in a way you can't be responsible. There's the hard part is you can't be responsible for all of it, but you have to be responsible for some of it. Like, like with candy, candy's delicious, right? But it's not inherently a bad thing to have candy. But if you're somebody who eats candy all the time,
Right.
then you're essentially the drug dealer, right? You're like,
Hmm.
you have to own the fact that, like, there will be people who will abuse what you do. And I think that's the hard part about life, is that you have to recognize that you are contributing to people's behaviors and things, and you just have to accept that in a way, in the same way that, like, if you work at if fast food, you're serving some of the worst people in the planet and you're serving some of the most humble people, and their faces may not tell you which they are.
Yeah.
If you've ever purchased anything, you may have purchased it from somebody who's done something entirely unforgivable. Like, you don't get to pick this moral high ground, but you get to understand what you're contributing and make choices around that. Like, nothing can ever be pure. Fantasy and all and television can, and entertainment can feel pure.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the thing that we like about it. It's so refined that it feels pure, but in a way it can have its detrimental things to you too. And it's like, if you don't have a level head in the community and people around you to help keep you grounded, and or a good mindset to keep yourself grounded, then those things become problematic.
Oh yeah. And if like you said, you have to be grounded. And, you can be because the purity could be one thing, but the behind the scenes takes away the purity
Yeah.
because then that's.
Oh yeah, if you work behind the scenes, the illusion's gone. One of my teachers, acting teachers, put it great. Where he was at Disneyland, and some of the performers offered to just kind of get them out of the location in a very specific way. So they go back, see Mickey Mouse smoking a cigarette, and it's like you know what, the illusion in Disneyland is an amazing thing. It's a very fun experience, but there somewhere behind the scenes is Mickey Mouse smoking a cigarette.
Right, right.
you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
um,
My
yeah,
my son works for Pixar cars, Disney Pixar cars, and he does like the voiceover, like he reads the books, but he
mm,
also does live stuff. So he interviews like NASCAR drivers, and then he does it's like a long infomercial, I guess, with another kid, and they debut the toys,
mm,
and I'm there with him all the time. So that behind the scenes, it's like, if if you brought a kid to meet their favorite star from that show, you actually just crush them when they walk through the door, because they're like, this is just a piece of wood and it's painted on, and sometimes they're actually doing it right there.
yeah,
And and it's take after take after take, and you know what I mean, you get to see them go to the bathroom and then get mic'd up. And you know my son is 11, so he's been in the business since like 2.5.
yeah,
And so I still tell him that's not real. Life is life, and this is your work. That's not real. The real part, the fantasy part, is when they go to post production and you see what they did with your talent, and then the rest of it being put together.
yeah,
And that way he can stay on Earth. I try.
yeah. It's just remembering that, like, at a certain point you're the person telling the story, but once the story is done, you still have to live life. What's that? Some musicians were talking about this. I forget who it was, where they would sell out like an arena somewhere in like a city somewhere over in overseas, and there'd be people for come from miles and miles and miles and miles and miles to meet them. They couldn't move an inch in this area without somebody recognizing them, adoring them, falling in love with them. But when it came to get food, they just drive an hour away to like an IHOP or a Denny's, and no one would care who they are.
That's
And
beautiful.
that is, I think, the perfect example of understanding what it is that the world really is. Like when you fly in an airplane and you see everybody like down as little ants, and that look they everybody looks like little ants and stuff. You're just like, okay, I'm just a small part of it. Whatever I see and perceive as my world, it's still just a small part of everything. So I can, while this is my influence and this is what I get to have had the joy of surrounding my life with and being my perception, I got to understand that like this is something to be appreciative of, but I'm still just an ant. I'm still a blip in time that will be forgotten 3 generations from now. You just have to have the humility that like whatever you're doing, like you have to know that there is always going to be an expiration to your memory.
Hmm.
And so the best you can do is try to make the best of everyone's time here and appreciate what you got, because it's all gone some point. So you know you you try to enjoy it as best as you can. It's going to get frustrating, it's going to be terrifying, it's going to be exhausting, it's going to be depressing, it's going to be overly exciting. It's going to be everything you could possibly want and everything you could possibly hate, sometimes within the same minute. You know, so you just have to accept what you got, strive for harder, and then just try to do your best to appreciate it. Because yeah,
Yeah, I really am. It's really nice, like, to hear this, because I'm telling you, like, I'm not saying like, oh, I've met a why I worked in the music side, so a lot of those people have egos,
oh yeah,
the ones that I've met. But like, okay, here's a good example. You say you're in survival mode. To me, and I don't. You already know I don't equate success to the money necessarily,
of
but
course,
when you um say you're in survival mode, do you still have that feeling though of, because like I look at your stuff and your resume and I'm like Carl's Jr. or Netflix and PF Chang's, or
yeah,
Comedy Central, and then the people you directed, and for me I'm like, okay, I produced music for these three big names, but that's over the last 25 years, where, you're on a rhythm. And I see that as success. Again, the money has nothing to do with it. It's the fact that you obviously honed your craft and were able to sell yourself enough to say, I know I can do this. And you're moving forward with it, with all these different avenues. And I just try to figure out, like, do you still see yourself as successful in that route?
I,
Realm?
I think you probably know it from your experience is that like you've worked with this famous person or you worked with this famous for this famous company is a sales point, you know? It's like even if you did work next to like the most famous people, it's still a selling point, you know?
Yeah.
Um, if you combined all that work that I did there into 3 hour sessions, let's say, which it's completely, you know, there have been times where it's like this is months of my life, this is an hour of my life, this is 10 minutes of my life to do that. You combine all those things that I put in my thing, maybe that's a month or two of my life, you know.
Mm,
And then you realize I still have had many years in between. So all the things that I've done, all the things that I've worked for, there's a lot of space in between the sales point of it. The sales point is always a clout thing. You know, you need something to walk in the door with people so that they feel like they can trust you. Like if I'm going to sell a show or talking to a network executive, like they don't necessarily they're not going to want everybody off the street, right? They're not going to want everybody to pitch them an idea.
right.
But the second I'm like, oh, I had a show called Trip Tank on Comedy Central. We've got 2 seasons. Boom. All of a sudden it's like, oh, I can trust you because somebody else trusts you. Same thing with, with anything that you work on, the audience can love you and make that known. But if the press loves you, then then people will be like, oh,
You're
the press
special.
is paying attention to you. Now you're somebody worth paying attention to. If and that's all that stuff is I've worked on all for stuff for all those famous brands and some version or another, done a lot of voiceover for a lot of stuff, but the real of it is it's a couple minutes in the booth, couple hours in the booth, and then you go home and you're still ordering Grubhub from the same restaurants as everybody else. There's a humility to it where it's like when it's the work, it's the work. You just do you do the job, you go and you have fun, you celebrate it, and then afterwards, there's
Like,
it, yeah, it's like Christmas morning sometimes where you unwrap all the presents and it's the greatest thing ever. But there's still a whole day with your family you got to appreciate.
that's true. This is great.